everyone. Welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo series podcast. Today is Saturday, May 27, 2023, and you're listening to episode 7, Friends of the Silo. I'm your host, Crystal, here with my co-host, Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
Joining us today for our breakdown of Silo episode 5, The Janitor's Boy, is Irish science fiction author Eamon Ambrose. Say hi, Eamon.
Hey, everybody.
So, Eamon is the author of 0 Hour and Love and Other Algorithms, and he's got an upcoming novel called Madeline Strange as well. Kelly and I have invited Eamon to be on the podcast because he was one of the contributors to the editorial series that I've mentioned in the past that was done on the downdeep.net called Through the Pages Wool, where we broke down the chapters of Wool doing a reread and made predictions for how they're going to adapt the book into a show. And he is also a longtime Hugh Howey fan, so we're excited to hear his thoughts. So thank you for joining us for our breakdown.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get right into it. I mean, there's so much to talk about this week.
This was a great episode.
I didn't feel like that last week. I felt like we were kind of scraping like bottoms of barrels. Like, it was good, but it was like, I don't know.
Yeah, and plus I was feeling under the weather, so I was just not feeling it too much.
We were both like, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, this week there's so much meat to it.
There's a lot to unpack there.
I know. Okay, so I was admittedly a little bugged that Marnes died off screen.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, come on, he's Marnes. And then, yeah, he's just dead. But yeah, so Jules is in her apartment and she gets a message from a porter and that's how we learned that he's dead. It's just she's reading like I don't know what I don't know. Do you think these are wires, Eamon?
It's like a telegram.
Yeah, it's like typewriter.
Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah, I mean, they don't seem to do the wires thing as much in so far.
Yeah,
in
they need those chutes like they have at the bank, where you put your stuff in and just send things flying down a couple levels. I mean, like, okay, you can't travel a couple levels, but surely you should have something.
Yeah. But yeah, so she goes down there and Bernard's not already there, but Sims is there. And then when they leave, she searches Marnes's body and finds the list of suspects that he had requested from Judicial.
Mm-hmm.
So that paper was actually really, I'll get into this later, but that paper was actually really helpful in terms of like sniffing out a bunch of details about the silo. But
about the floor levels and stuff?
Yeah, well, there was like because if you pause it, you can read a bunch of things, but it had date references and things like that, and that's what I used to figure out some things about the timeline of the silo and stuff like that. But yeah, so Jules gets told that Paul Billings is her new chief deputy, like without any like input from her, right? So
and this is the guy that Judicial wanted to be sheriff to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But this was the first time we met him.
Yeah. And I will say,
he looks familiar. I don't know.
He looks really familiar, and he has a really kind face. So I hope he isn't a bad guy. Don't know if he is or not. I have no idea, but I like him.
Yeah, he was good casting. I think because the original Paul Billings was kind of similar, as in temperament, and he seemed to be a nice guy. So it's good.
Yeah, when I look at him, it makes me happy.
I think he's English, or he lives in England. I think. If I'm not mistaken, I've seen him in something before.
I couldn't tell if I had or not. I just had
He does look very nice, though.
Yeah, he just has this friendly look about him.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any way that he can be a bad guy unless this actor is just phenomenal. Because
yeah, I think they tried.
This looks kind.
I think they briefly tried to hint that he might be a bad guy during when he first.
Yeah, I was like, no.
And he gives her the information, so you don't know if he deliberately gave her that information or not. But then he kind of redeems himself later on by saying he didn't know that.
Though I will say, as a non-book reader, I'm still not sure. I'm like, oh, could go either way, but.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's a little suspicious because he's very eager, he's very nice, and he's forthcoming
to both parties,
Yeah, but at the same time, he comes in is all nicey nice to her right after he was meeting with Sims, right? So who knows?
Right, I couldn't tell. But I'm sure we're going to talk about this more later. So
yeah. Okay, so Bernard he tells who is in there. Anyway, he asked Jules to remain behind. He basically is just like, oh, he asked her if she's read the Pact, and he basically tells her that the subtext of her job is to kiss Judicial's ass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of funny that they're so forthcoming with her. You would think that like people who like play the political game are a little more subtle.
Whenever people are forthcoming on this show and in real life, I always just think they're lying.
Yeah, I think that's
because I mean,
part of the whole ethos of it. I think is that you can't trust anybody at some stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's again, like it's being Bernard is sort of downplayed a little bit, I think, deliberately in this, so it's quite good, I think, especially in this episode, because you get on people's sides and stuff, you know. But
it seems like all he's
the
trying to do is get through that liquor stashed.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like that's misdirection, though. It's just like, don't
Just
mind
like,
him. He's
let's
just like a
keep
drunk old
drinking.
man. Yeah, but then okay, so they move on to the funeral, and oh my god, how awkward was his eulogy?
It was very awkward.
It was
Yes.
really clunky.
I like the bit about the shoes, like to fill her shoes. Oh, but her feet were rather small. Okay.
I love that. Yeah, it was so awkward. I was like, oh, this is so cringy.
I thought Juliette's was better, in part. Like, at least she said some things that people seemed to appreciate. Right?
Yeah.
Sandy didn't look happy.
Sandy never looks happy. I think
Yeah.
Sandy has resting bitch face like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is very angsty towards her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so
Is
then-
that like metaphorical? Like they're gonna grow fruit trees from the bodies? Are they just like throwing the apples in, hoping that something sprouts, or are they just tossing food out? I was a little
I
confused.
They basically just they feed the plants basically.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because
the funny thing I saw, the funny thing watching that is it is because they were using apples instead of tomatoes, and they. I trained in sound design
really?
and Foley work, and I just found it really funny watching that scene where they were biting the apples and throwing them into the grave, because I was just imagining some guy constantly having to bite a load of apples to get a load of different sounds from them.
Oh yeah,
and then throw them into something to make them sound like they're hitting, and then try to sync it up later. I found it really funny watching that. But
okay, but I think it's actually.
Is it tomatoes in the book, really?
Yeah, but I think it's actually a mixture of fruit that people are throwing in there.
yeah,
because,
actually, I think
it's like
now that you say it, yeah, I think I saw some pears there as well.
Oh,
well, because when somebody bit one, I was like, I swear it was like yellow flesh, and I was like, that's not an apple. So I think they have like peaches and like nectarines, and like you said, there was possibly a pear. But yeah, and then also like going back to a previous episode, you know how I mentioned the ball jar, Kelly?
the ball jar.
Remember, I talked about how Juliette had a ball jar in her apartment? It was actually full of dried apricots. So they have that too. So they have a nice variety of fruit in the silo, it seems.
I'm really surprised that it's tomatoes in the book, because like throwing tomatoes at someone is very symbolic, you know? At a funeral, that seems, at least now that I have it visually from the show, if they had thrown tomatoes, it would have been something entirely different.
Yeah, that is funny. Okay, so then after the funeral, Julia goes back to the sheriff's department. Hank is waiting for her. I just want to say that I love Hank. He is so cute. Like, so he comes up and he's got a tin. He's got news from the down deep, and he's got like his tin of one hush puppy that he ate on the way
Oh,
up.
Hank! I'm sorry, I forgot who Hank was. Hank, I like Hank a lot.
And also, I learned this past week that Hank is played by an actor named Billy Postlethwaite, and he's Pete Postlethwaite's son.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought that was really cool. I was a big fan of his, that's why. So,
Can I say one more thing about the funeral?
yeah.
Sure.
I thought it was weird. I just watched it once, but they seemed to pray to the founders, which I thought was really, really strange.
What did they
like
say?
they start out their prayer something like "Dear" or something founders, and it creeps me out.
Yeah,
you have the transcript, right?
Oh, it's "Hear us, O founders."
Hear us, O founders. Maybe it's just like a worship of like, I don't know, those
Well,
who have
maybe
gone
it's just
before.
because, like, yeah, they've gone before, so they're the ancestors of the silo. And they say, death into life, circle without end.
That just sounds weird and pagan. I mean, I'm all about pagan stuff, but like, I don't know. There's not so much of a circle of life in that silo.
The
Getting
funny
back
thing
to,
I found about the whole Hank thing, I don't know if they're building up to something with him or not. It seems to be like they are. Again, he didn't have a huge role previously, so I think they may be building up to him doing something there. I don't know what, but it seems something seemed odd about that scene to me. I don't know.
well, I mean, he
I was
does
a little
bring
suspicious.
word of, yeah, he does bring word of unrest building. He says that his cousin asked if it's safe for his kids to go to school.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then he seems to be like one of the mechanical group, like the down deep, like Juliet's crowd, because he was in the generator room when
Right.
the
He
mirror
seems
went
to be
down.
like the deputy of that area of like,
Yeah,
10 floors or something. I don't know.
yeah, but he also seems to be like friends with them. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
in their like little inner circle. So
I know. It makes you wonder though. Is he doing that for a reason? I'm just thinking.
Sure.
oh no, please don't make Hank a bad guy. I like Hank too much.
Yeah, I do like him. He's great. He's a great actor.
He looks really tall too.
I'm trying to think of who Hank reminds me of. He reminds me of that actor that was in, I don't know, some weird like Netflix. Gosh, I can't think of anything right now because I didn't watch them. It was like a really famous movie about a divorce. It was like a guy and a woman Netflix show.
Oh,
Come
Oh,
on.
the
Adam
guy who's in Star
Driver.
Wars.
Yeah, Adam Driver.
Yeah,
See,
Yeah, I
that's
Crystal
saw.
the
is
one.
so sorry. He
I
reminds me a little bit of Adam Driver.
oh, that's what. Okay, so somebody on Reddit had made a joke post saying that when they first saw him, they thought Silo Ren. So I guess you're
Yeah,
not the only
yeah.
one.
Okay.
So you're not the only one who thinks that he looks like Adam Driver.
When I made my doodle in my notebook, it looks like Adam Driver more than that guy. So trying to remember who people are.
All right, so Sandy still gunning for Secretary of the Year. Holy cow, she just comes right at Jules though this episode.
You just don't
Like,
like Sandy. I like her.
I don't like Sandy. Yeah. You're Team Sandy. I am Team
I am
Jules.
Team Jules too, but
But yeah, she's just like, everything here comes through me. But she is useful though because she does warn Jules about how Judicial is going to serve up a patsy to her, and that clues her in to how she can like conduct her investigation into Marnes. And I do like that Jules, sets aside her little personal investigation into George, and she just gets right into trying to figure out who killed Marnes because I
I think
guess
it was sort of. I think when she said that Marnes wouldn't want to send someone out to clean that doesn't deserve it, I think that
yeah,
sort of resonated with her a little bit. So
yeah, speaks to his character. And so she gets saddled with Paul, and then they go to talk to a man named Charles Martin. And I thought this was really intriguing because we get to hear more about the syndrome. Like he's like talking about how he mentions that he doesn't buy any kind of story that Martin's died of like a heart attack or something. But Jules mentioned that he has the syndrome because I guess his hand is shaking.
which seems
And
like a
he
nothing now. Like,
yeah,
what?
but he mentions that he was down on 62 getting tests done. I guess it's for the syndrome,
Yeah.
or that's what I'm assuming. But
What I mean is like it seemed when we saw that list of like people like the deaths and the the stillborns and people dying from the syndrome, that seemed like a huge. It's kind of like COVID now. When you say someone has COVID, you're like, oh, whatever. Like it's not,
yeah,
nobody cares anymore because it's like long gone. So kind of reminds me of that. It's like it was
yeah,
clearly a problem at some point.
yeah. Because I was wondering, like, is it not contagious? Because when like we were talking about how many cases they had reported, it sounded like it was like an epidemic, but maybe it's not. So I don't know. Doesn't sound contagious because she didn't seem concerned about him
Well,
having the
imagine how
syndrome.
fast something like that spreads in a place like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I bet.
I'd imagine it's not something contagious. It's probably something like Alzheimer's or something like that, or Parkinson's or
Or
something.
something you
Something
get
that's
like
yeah, to
living
combine.
in their circumstances. That's
Yeah,
what I
Yeah.
was sort of thinking, like lack of something, you know?
Yeah. Like some kind of yeah, because I think I had
Or
been
just like
thinking, oh,
hysteria.
is
I would go crazy.
yeah. Like, I was thinking, is it scurvy or some kind of vitamin deficiency? But
Scary.
uh, but yeah,
They
so
need
she
orange trees. What are they doing?
yeah, they didn't throw. Although I guess you can't really take a bite out of an orange and throw it in a grape.
Ew. You could if you hate that person.
Okay, so after they talk to Charles, Jules basically shoos Paul away, telling him go eat lunch. And then she uses the list and she goes to what is supposed to be the Kennedy's department, and that's where she finds the drawing of Mayor Johns and the rat poison.
Still love that drawing.
Yeah. It's on the back of something too. It looks like it was like a form because remember they were at the deputy station when he drew that? Like they were staying at a deputy station overnight.
Oh yeah.
I think he probably
Just some
took like a
scrap paper.
form. Yeah, like
Okay.
some kind of thing and then he just turned it over and used it. So but yeah, so when she's leaving, she encounters a man and he asks, "Who are you looking for?" And she says, "Patrick." And he says, "He's not here." And this is later revealed to be how Jules learns that Patrick doesn't live there anymore. But they don't reveal that until later.
Which I thought was very confusing. I was confused because like when he said that, she immediately starts like breaking in. I was like, okay.
Oh no, that was when she was leaving. But yeah, I thought it was weird too because I was like, he just says, "Pat, he's not here," and then they cut away.
Right.
So I was confused, and so it only made sense later when when she finds the guy Doug. So
I was thinking whenever that whole scene happened that there's obviously no sort of like fingerprinting going on in the silo because none of them seem to have, they just touch everything. Like any
yeah,
illegal
I
activity
noticed that
is just
too.
all hands on. So maybe that's
Yeah,
like
I noticed.
banned technology.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, cause yeah, it sounds like looking at things too closely is not something they want. So
Yeah, it seems to be that the people involved with the deaths are the ones controlling everything, so
government,
they don't want people finding out what happened.
yeah. I mean, that's basically what Sandy tells her, right? Is Meadows is not interested in the truth, so she implies that like the good of the silo is the priority for judicial, right?
And she's interested in maintaining order, is what I think she
Yeah,
said.
which I don't really necessarily have a problem with, but I guess if you have a personal stake in it, you can have a problem with it. But yeah, overall, I can see how that should probably be a priority because
I totally get it because it's this one. It's a building of a certain amount of people and maintaining order. Like any sort of chaos, you just can't have that
yeah.
when there's nowhere to go, nowhere else to go.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. I mean,
team
it's scary. I
judicial, I
mean,
guess.
yeah, because I mean, if people just lose it, right? I mean, what are you gonna do? Just
Like
hide in
any
your
kind of
apartment?
rioting, right? And so,
Yeah.
like all of the uprisings. Obviously, I don't know what's going on here, but that would have been very scary.
That scene where Jules finds where she breaks into the apartment. The one thing I found really ridiculous that was she opened the lock with a pin from a badge, even though she's got like a multi tool on her pocket.
With her badge,
I,
right? Yes, I
yeah,
know.
I just found that really silly. But just something again, just sort of a nitpicking thing that I
Right, a
didn't
badge
get.
she just got as well. Like
Yeah,
she doesn't have
and it's got like a tiny
experience.
pin.
Like,
It's not.
It it was
You
kind
cannot
of
open the lock with that.
it was kind of a fake out too because that scene where she unlocks the door with the badge was something that I had honed in on. It was they had used that in a promo, and I was like, "Oh, she's using the badge to open the door that George was looking for." But it turns out she's just using it to pick a lock.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
some secret key.
Yeah, no, it's not. But yeah, so does that mean that the badge is literally just his message, like truth? Come look,
I
take
think
the
it is.
job.
I think that's just it.
Yeah, I suppose
Yeah.
it was just a bit
I think that's
Okay,
all he
symbolic.
had time for.
still no headway on this double the flowers mystery though.
Nothing.
That question still goes on. Okay, so next we move to Paul going to see Sims in Judicial. And I thought it was interesting that different floors are color coded. Have you guys noticed that?
No.
Like I the walls in IT were like a teal kind of color, and then the walls in judicial were like a red burnt orange kind of color. So it's kind of a interesting way to like tip you off on where they are. Because Sims's office was very red, and I think Meadows later, and then when they're exiting judicial, like the walls are all burnt orange. So
God, I'm glad you noticed that because I have no idea where they are at any given moment. So that was maybe it's just because I watched them once. It's just like one time.
yeah.
I won't notice.
So when Paul gets there, he sees that Sims is talking to Doug, and Doug is the guy that killed Martins, because we saw his face at the end of the last episode. He's
Hmm.
the guy who's like fighting with Martins in the apartment, and they show him, and that's him. And then, okay, so what I thought was interesting about this is that Paul looked really offended, or he sounded really offended that he was there to be a candidate to be Sims's shadow. So that made me think, is Paul already Sims's shadow? You know, like the way that he was talking, is like, really? He's gonna be your shadow? Like, I don't know, it just that
Are you
was
are you asking if Paul was also a candidate or his
I I
current shadow?
I'm posing the question, if is he already Sims's shadow? Because I mean, he goes
I see.
straight to him, and he's just like, why are you talking to him about being your shadow? Like
Mhm.
I thought it was weird that he was just so visibly offended. So that's
Well,
I took it as
maybe
that.
would he have been the shadow before he decided to, or before he was moved to sheriff? Maybe.
yeah. So that's what I'm thinking, that maybe that's why they
Mm.
wanted him to be sheriff.
That's
Because
interesting because I just got the impression that he had some sort of opinion on Doug,
Yeah,
that
that
he
too.
thought that he was like not appropriate.
oh yeah. So you think that he's just like unqualified or something? He's just like
Well, you guys know
scoffing at
more than
them.
I
Well,
do. Yeah, that's what I got. That's the impression I got with
Doug's
the show.
Doug's clearly a douchebag. So
Yeah.
I think Billings probably knew that for straight away already. So I think that was probably part of it as well.
You guys are cute with all your book reading and stuff.
But yeah, so Paul goes right back to Jules, and I thought it was funny because I thought he was gonna go to her office and she's not gonna be there. And he's gonna be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, where's Juliette?" But she's actually in there reading the Pact. Um, and then he
Pretending to read
tells.
the Pact.
I thought it was so funny when I can't remember when they first showed her reading it, but she was like totally falling asleep reading
She
it.
just grabs it whenever someone knocks on her door. Like she says yes to everyone who asks her if she's read it all day until she gets down to maintenance. She's like, no, I haven't fucking read that. Are you kidding? You know?
Yeah. Okay, so he tells her about the Friends of the Silo, which is like the listeners, I guess the spies in the silo who report back to judicial, I guess. He reveals some details about them, saying that none of what they say is admissible in court. So that like kind of, I
But it
mean,
was
that
a big
was
however, however, the stuff that they know is seemingly very important. It reminded me of like Professor Umbridge's prefects. What did she call
oh,
them?
oh, I don't
High
remember.
Inquisit. Well, no, wait, what was it? Anyway, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it's a weird introduction because we haven't seen anything like that before. So it seems to be that they're just sort of spies. That they're, and it adds another level
Yeah,
of mystery to it, because you don't know who could be a
could be
spy and who
anyone,
isn't.
right?
Yeah, which is why I kind of came back to the Hank thing again.
Oh yeah, Hank is actually a good candidate to be a friend of the silo.
A lot of people suspect Martha too.
No, 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 no,
See, at least if you read
no
Reddit, like
lesbian
the.
is going to be a friend of the silo. Are you kidding? No.
But okay, so after he gives her like the name from Judicial, I think it was Ralph Melby, and so
Hmm.
she busts out of the office and she's like, "I'm going to go for Patrick Kennedy," and I guess this is basically where she solves the crime, right? She reveals to Sandy, and Sandy stops her in the cafeteria and tells her, what's going on. She lays it all out for her and says that Patrick Kennedy is going to be their patsy, and they're just using this Ralph guy to like, and like, okay, so going back to that sheet that Martin's had,
Hmm.
Ralph Melby lives on like 54 or something. So I think what they had wanted her to do was to go all the way down to the mid, like
Mm.
to like a third of the silo and just basically get distracted doing that, and they were gonna go, and maybe when she came back up, they would have been like, oh, we already got Patrick Kennedy, he's the bad guy. So
I'll admit that this is where I got really confused about Billings' loyalty, because from what I
like,
understand, Judicial wants her to go after Ralph
mhm.
while they go after Patrick. But did Billings know that he was just giving her like a crap name? That's what I couldn't tell.
I get the
Yeah, I
impression he
can't really
didn't.
tell either, because like later
Yeah,
on he's like feeding her even more things, right?
Right.
He's like,
And they seem
yeah.
to still be on the same page. Like she's
yeah.
not mad.
It just feels like that would have been a little too obvious. But yeah, I don't think he did it on purpose. I think he was just fed the information as well.
But if they gave him that name and she learns it from him, obviously they know that he's the one that gave it to her.
Yeah,
Once, so it seems like they would have lost like either way, depending which side he's on. Like they would never tell him anything important again, right?
that's true. That's true.
I'm not a very good spy because I can't suss anything.
Oh, Crystal.
That's what any spy would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jules is so they show the next they show Doug like rushing back to the Kennedy apartment, or what he thinks is the Kennedy apartment, and Jules is waiting for him, and that's where she basically busts him. She busts out her little
Mm-hmm.
crime solving thing and how she figured it out and everything. And she explains that after his wife died, he got moved to a single apartment, and housing did not know right away that she was dead. Like it's like she said, I think Doris, his wife, died a year ago, and she says that Patrick got moved 6 months ago. So it took him like 6 months to figure out that she was dead and like move him. But I guess in that 6 months, they never told Judicial that he
Right.
didn't live there anymore. So that's why he planted the evidence in the wrong apartment. But so if he works for Judicial, she must does she, I don't think she would just think that, oh, he's like a rogue Judicial
I
security
know,
guy. There's no way she's just gonna buy that he's just like,
right?
I don't like Marnes, I'm gonna just go kill the mayor and kill Marnes. But I mean, thankfully she keeps that to herself, and she just tells him that simple thing. But then like they do like this whole chase, and the race to the top has already started. I found like, so a lot of people like the generator scene, but I it didn't grab me as much as this one did. I really like this race to the top scene where she's chasing him.
It's really well done, actually. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So the scene during that scene, the way it was shot, it's kind of the first time we get to see a lot of levels together of the stairway. So it looked really, really good.
Yeah. So Kelly, last week you had mentioned dropping pennies off the Empire State Building.
It's the same thing, right? That's crazy. You can't drop. That's insanely tall. Anything you drop, a toothpick, it could like
Yeah, so
blow through someone's skull.
when she dropped her knife, I was like, "Oh no!"
I know, me too.
And then Martha actually brings it up later, right? When Jules is downstairs, she's like, "I found this knife. It almost hit someone," and I was like, "Oh my god!"
That's crazy. Imagine the amount of stuff that would be on the very bottom of that floor. Like just everything that accidentally gets knocked off or like batted around too much.
Or like bratty kids, like that must be like a thing that kids like to do,
Yeah.
right? We're not
You,
allowed to
you,
throw anything over, so
You
we're gonna
send them
throw
out
all
to
kinds of stuff.
clean then, little dorks.
you'd think they
Toss
would
them
have
out.
those. You think they would have those little nets,
I
that they
love
have on
children.
these things, on these kind of stairways.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
had talked about nets or yeah.
Every so many floors, there needs to be something that keeps like, I don't know, large items, suicidal people, knives, stuff, anything. It's not expensive.
All right, so while they're fighting, she breaks his finger, like full on, just cracks it in
Yeah.
the other direction. Oh my god, that was so awful. But
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny that later when he's talking to Sims, he's like, "Hey, what happened to your finger?" He's like, "Eh."
Moderate band-aid issue.
It just looks like he just straightened it out and put a little splint on it. It's fine. But yeah, it looked like she totally wrecked his finger. I would think that it would be like he would have it like full on, like wrap the whole hand in a ball or something.
I'm not really sure what kind of care they have going on, like medically wise, in this silo. There doesn't seem to be a lot. It seems to be all
Well, I
focused
mean,
on breeding.
or treating the syndrome.
Well, like what? I mean, people must have like modern ailments, right? I mean, all the same
Yeah.
things.
So I thought it was interesting that Jules is hanging there because I like their fight. I was really like tense about that. I mean I had known that she was going to go over the side because it was in a trailer or something. They showed her going over the side, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go. And I was like, oh my god, please don't let her. That I thought when Doug was racing down, I was like, oh my god, he's toast. He's going to go right over the railing, and he's going to be the person who falls. Because, Eamon, I've been talking about how it's so scary to me to think that you can fall from the top all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
Like Kelly had talked about how like dropping things is dangerous to people on the bottom, but for me, I've been just scared of like the thought of someone falling from all the way through the side, all the way to the bottom.
Yeah,
It's better to fall from high than midway.
Why?
Then you're dead. Otherwise, you might be like paralyzed. I don't think they have like. There's no elevator, Crystal. Okay, if you're paralyzed, you're stuck down there. Okay.
I think if you fall from even like 5 floors, I think you're toast. I don't know. I don't know what
Probably.
the height requirement for survival is.
Eamon, I'm
a
sorry.
lot of
Crystal and I are used to chatting with each other. I just blab at her all the time. I don't mean to talk over you.
no problem. Yeah, I think it's concrete. It's going to kill you.
It's going to kill you.
Pretty much from any height, I think.
Well, George landed on a fan, so.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's probably worse, I think.
Yeah, that's probably worse. Yeah. Let's move on. That I don't want to talk about that. It was kind of funny that like they showed like people racing up while Jules was hanging there, and then two of the racers help pull her up, and then they just keep racing.
I like that it was two women.
She did tell them to keep going though.
Yeah. She said go.
Go.
But yeah, it was still funny because I thought that they would be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Oh my god, what happened?" But yeah, they're just like pull her over and it's like go.
No, I was saying I wrote down in my book specifically that I was so happy that it was like two women that pulled her up and not like two dudes that stopped.
I have to wonder though, like what the prize is for winning. I don't think they
not
mentioned.
enough.
Yeah, there's no mention of that, and there was no mention of who won the race either. It was just sort of an afterthought. So we didn't even get to see who won at the end of it.
Yeah, it's funny though because last week on Reddit somebody had started a thread and said, "Where are the sports in the silo? What do people do for sports in the silo? Huh?
Go up and down the stairs, dude."
And then here's a race. This is what
Those
they do
stairs are
for sport.
multi-purpose.
Yeah. All right, so then we come to Sims and the janitorial closet, which I guess is why the episode is called the janitor's boy. Sims is the janitor's boy. He tells the story, and I didn't actually catch this story the first time. I don't know why I got distracted by something, and I didn't really hear all the details of what he was talking about. But basically, he's saying that his dad is someone important and it has to do with what's in the closet, but he doesn't reveal what it is. But this is basically another mystery that they're pulling out in the show, right? Like what is behind this closet and what does his dad actually do because he has power, right? He's saying that he can get a whole family of his son's bully relocated to the down deep. I mean, I don't think that like if he was an ordinary janitor, he would be able to do that. So, what did you think, Kelly?
Honestly, my first question was if like the janitors are fake, then who's actually cleaning up? Like, honestly, that was my first idea. Was like, okay, so if you're a janitor, you're not really a janitor. You're something else to do with whatever's behind the door. But someone has to be the janitor. So I'm wondering if there are like regular janitors.
There are
Honestly, I'm
regular
saying
janitors.
all this because I have no idea what's behind the door. I have no
Okay, but
idea.
I have seen a janitor on the show. It's actually in the opening sequence of the show when Holson is walking to his to the sheriff's department. They pan up over a walkway and there's a guy buffing the floor of a walkway.
He's pretending. That's a fake. No, come on. Okay. Why else would they put a janitor in the opening anything of anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think like they have secret jobs, but they also have to clean the
Well,
silo, or do they have like
no. You think that
janit?
Sims guy is cleaning anything?
Nah.
Mm,
He
I
wears
don't
a
know.
leather jacket. He's got the one leather jacket in the silo. I don't think he's.
He's like the worst Batman. Like during the day, he's this cool guy, and at night, he's like mopping floors down like level thing. Like what?
Clearly we haven't been introduced to this before. It kind of just comes out of nowhere. I'm presuming the janitorial place is in the judicial area. So it look, it's just another part that that somebody controls there. So it's something that's like we hadn't really heard about anything, even from an IT point of view so far.
Funny though,
Well, I'll
because
talk earlier
the
on.
door he came out of does say janitorial, so I wonder how they keep the actual janitors out of that closet.
Is it
Like, do
like
they, when
the
you become a
judicials?
janitor, like when you become a janitor, do they say, okay, you can go to every janitorial closet except this one?
Like, okay, so like, is it that the judicial's janitor is like has like a special force, or is it because then all the other janitors or every other floor could be
Yeah,
regular
I think it's just.
janitors,
I
and
think
this
it's
janitor
purely.
is just where they keep their. I mean, you don't keep your cleaning supplies in judicial, right? Like that's crazy.
Oh, so you're saying like it's like a territorial thing? Like nobody would go into this
I don't
level?
know. I mean, if that's, I don't know, Crystal, you've read the books.
Well, this is a change from the book, so this is just a suspicion of what's
You
behind the
say that
curtain.
about every time I ask you.
No, but
Every time
this
you're
is
like,
like
"This is a
factual. And
change from the
Yeah,
book."
this is a big change though. This is kind of
I have no idea
um
what's going on. Is it?
the
Yeah,
IT
yeah.
IT. I think IT don't seem to have as much control as they did in the book.
Yeah, I remember like there was another scene where I remember what it was because I've read the short story and I remember, but like last week I asked Crystal like I couldn't remember how I could read the short story. I had purchased it before and I was like I need to read it again because I remembered something about like IT and that they were sort of like a higher power than I've gotten the impression that they are in this show. Is that related?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's because in the short story, the judicial doesn't exist, so it's sort of IT
Oh
where
no, actually they do exist. It's just they're not very prominent.
yeah, yeah, they don't have
In
as
the
much
short
power.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just kind of like an afterthought. They're mentioned a couple times, but they're not anything really big. They've really expanded judicial in this show. So
Well, Sims in this show says that what they do behind the door or something like that is the most important work of the silo. And that's not like cleaning supplies, right?
it's vacuums.
Ugh,
No,
I
just
would kill for
kidding.
a good vacuum.
But yeah, so I thought it was funny that Sims psychs out Doug. He swears him in his shadow, and boom, he's his
yeah.
shadow for two
Yeah, I
seconds.
know. That was disturbing.
Doug Trumbull found the actual elevator. That's the quickest way to get to the bottom.
Well, to be fair, Doug deserved it.
He did. Because yeah, he tells him that he fucked up with George. So what I want to talk about is what do we think happened with George? Like it sounds like he's saying that Doug is the one who killed George, right?
Definitely. That's
Yeah,
the impression I got.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
And so and maybe what else he messed up was he didn't get the drive because obviously maybe Judicial was trying to find that hard drive because that's probably what got George killed, right? So yeah, and then he doesn't Judicial doesn't have it because Holston or no Juliet has it and then she gives it to Holston and we still don't know where it is currently.
Oh,
So
we don't know where it is.
yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're gonna make us wait. I think to see where that is. It's another part of the whole mystery thing. It'll turn up at some stage, but again, how it's going to happen, I don't know, or who has it or where it is. But it's an interesting one.
it's been interesting to see on Reddit because of the subreddit has been growing really big. I think it just passed 8,000 members this week. But there's a lot of frustration from book readers saying like, why are they not doing this and why are they not doing that? But it's just for me, I'm just like, well, you already know the answers. So that's why you're frustrated because
Yeah,
you want other people to know. But what the show people have to do is they have to create something that builds a lot of mystery for people who don't know the story, right? For people like you, Kelly.
yeah,
So they have to like
Yeah.
put all these questions out there and make you think, what is going on? What's behind this door? Who is he? And is he bad? Is he good? Is she
Hmm.
good? Or so
yeah. But
all of that is intentional.
what I really like about so far what they've done is they've enhanced everything rather than change everything. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
changes, but in most I remember when we did
The through the
the
pages thing.
thing. Yeah, when we did that, like one of the things I mentioned was that would probably happen would be that we would see more of what happened with Juliet when she did become sheriff, because in the original book you don't see that much of you don't see much of her sleuthing or any of this stuff,
Yeah.
which is really good. I really like this kind of mystery thing that they've built into it.
Yeah, and I
Without
think Hugh is really enjoying it too because he was posting
Yeah,
on Reddit. He was posting on Reddit, and I think someone had commented about the point that she bust Doug, and he I think he replied and said that's the moment she became sheriff.
yeah,
Which yeah, I really agree with that because yeah, it really showed that she can do this job because she's been showing that, or she's been saying that she's not qualified, and she understands that she's in over her head and everything. But yeah, I mean that just shows that she can solve crimes. She does have the observation skills to be a detective, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. It's the typical sort of Hollywood thing they do. They try and turn they have to add some bit of a procedural into every show now. It's funny, no matter where it is or what it's about. It was the same with Snowpiercer. They turned it into a procedural for the first couple
yeah.
of episodes. Stick a cop in there straight away. That's it. But I know there was always going to be police in
Oh,
this, but
that's right. He was LAPD or something, right?
yeah, but
He
I know
was.
there was going to be police
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this,
that's
and we knew there
right.
was going to be police in this. But they did add the whole procedure element into it. But I think it works well here. It actually needed. I think the story needed that.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. That's why they pulled him out of the back car. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a while since I saw the show. That's why. So
yeah. I didn't see all of it. I just watched a couple of episodes, but that was kind of the main thing I took from it.
yeah, I haven't seen season 3, and I know that it got canceled. But I think I heard that they filmed a final season. They just don't have anyone to air it yet. So I don't know. So then they cut to Jules, and we meet Judge Meadows. Finally, I was wondering who she was, because there was no like credit for her character on IMDb, and I think it's just because IMDb hasn't been updated. Like I don't know if that's intentional. It might be intentional where they don't want to reveal certain people playing
Yeah, I
certain
think so.
things. Yeah. So
It was weird. It was a very quick introduction as well because there was no real introduction to her as a character. She
mhm,
just
mhm.
appears out of nowhere. That's it. But
Yeah, you
it's
kind of just have to assume that's her because Sims is standing right next to her, right?
yeah,
Well, I think that's part of, as someone who hasn't read the books, and Crystal and I were talking about this earlier, I've had to like really write people's names down, like drawing little pictures, and I'm not like great with names anyway, so I'm probably not like the best example. But I've had to really pay attention and kind of like it's not like a natural follow along. I mean, like the judge has been mentioned a couple of times, but sometimes I see people and I'm like, I don't know if I've seen them before. I can't remember if that's a name that I should
Well,
know.
there's no Judge Meadows in the book, so
Oh God, okay.
yeah, she's not an actor. She's like a new show character, so
Right. All right.
mm,
So
yeah. But
it
they
wouldn't
they,
matter
they
what she looks like or anything.
no,
It's just
no,
like
but
a
they
complete.
have mentioned her several times in the past, in past episodes. So yeah, I was looking forward to seeing who she find. I was like, oh my god, are we never gonna get to meet her? She's just gonna be
Right.
like this mentioned character the whole season. But yeah. But and like I recognized her too because she was in like the trailer or like one of the promos or something. So I was
Mm.
like, oh, she's Meadows. Because yeah, there was this lady character who was speaking to Jules in the promo, and I was just like, I have no idea who this is.
Yeah,
Couldn't
no.
find her face on the IMDb page, but it's probably going to be updated soon with that. So, and then Jules is told basically that she can just stop investigating because she said she was going to look into Doug and try to find his motivation for killing Martins, and maybe it was like from the past or something. Because I think she says they both came from the mids. She thought maybe she's speculating that maybe they got into like some kind of thing in the past, but then Meadows just tells her, "No, you can just close the case," and basically just tells her to go on go
I
on
found
with
it
her.
really obnoxious how after every time Juliet said anything, Meadows and Sims would just kind of like make eye contact, look away, be like, "Oh no, actually, you can just go on about your life." It was like a complete. It was like this patronizing dismissal. I hated it.
Yeah, I mean everybody's like that with Juliet, right? She gets it from
So
everywhere.
yeah, I think it really triggers something in me. Like if that happens to me in my life, that I really hate that. I don't know if it's
Like
like a
everybody is like knowingly exchanging looks like
yeah.
ugh.
I had a job like that once where like the two I don't know.
And then yay, for me anyway, Sandy announces that she's transferring.
No.
I don't think we've seen the last of her though. I
Probably
have a
not.
feeling she'll be back.
She has a good
yeah.
face.
But she mentions that she's not going to miss being watched in the up top, which I guess
Mm.
goes back to the Friends of the Silo thing, right?
I think everyone's just being watched all the time. I don't know. That's what I would imagine.
She does bring up more of the class divide though, because Jules kind of like tries hinting like, "Oh, why were you like so condescending earlier when you live? Do you have family on 105?" She's like, and Sandy insists, "Oh, it's
Mhm.
lower mids. It's not down deep." Like, I wonder if there's like a specific level where people consider,
Like the
you know,
cutoff. Yeah.
yeah, if I could just move one floor up.
It's like Manhattan, right?
I don't. What does that mean? Like streets? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, like, Upper East Side, Lower East Side, and then like
Uh,
as low or high as you get. It's like it's a status thing.
So, and then we go to Bernard basically kissing Jules' ass, saying
Mhm.
that he was
He's
wrong about
drunk.
her. Again, right?
I just
Oh my
figured.
god. I was just like, why if you're temporarily married, are you gonna just become like a drunk?
That's
You
what I was talking about. Is alcohol so rare there? Like that's the most important thing for him. He's got like a month, 2 months, and all he cares about is getting through like the liquor stash.
But he keeps saying that. He keeps saying, I'm only going to be married
Yeah,
for a few months."
yeah.
He says it several times during
Uh-huh.
that episode.
yeah.
So, I think he has other plans.
Well, he's worrying
But
it'll be longer. Maybe he's trying to drink himself to death.
Yeah, maybe he just is uncomfortable in those shoes. The shoes are too small because they belong to John's.
Right?
But so he mentions the forgiveness holiday, and I think that's foreshadowing for next week's episode. He tells Jules that he's going to require that they have deputies everywhere because people get wild during forgiveness holidays. And so, just to give some context, I had to go look at the book for what this was, but it's basically when they forgive petty crimes. I think that's why it's like a judicial thing. Whatever they have people booked for, maybe they like waive sentences briefly or something. I don't know.
I definitely didn't understand what the forgiveness holiday was when the only time I watched it, I wasn't quite sure. It reminded me, isn't there some movie where, like, for 24 hours, like, all murders
That
are
that's
legal or
that's the
something?
that's the I
The
thought the same
Purge.
thing. You're thinking about The
Not gonna
Purge,
watch that
yeah.
shit. That sounds terrible, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds like The
No,
Purge.
I was like, "Oh my god, it's the Silo Purge."
Why would you do that in such a small, like, contained community of people? What? Everyone knows each
No.
other. There's no such thing as petty crime.
Okay, so what I suspect it is like, they have people who, like, get sentenced to, like, small things, like maybe community service, or they have to, like, they're on janitor duty or something for whatever, and, like, I guess maybe during the forgiveness holiday, they don't have to serve their time, or they can have, like, time off or something, I don't know. That's my prediction.
Maybe. Sounds
Yeah,
terrible.
I think it's just sort of any smaller crimes are sort of they just get forgiven, and that's it.
Yeah.
They
Like
don't have to
stealing
do
the
anything.
heat tape or whatever it was that Juliette did.
Well, that's probably not a petty crime to Bernard.
Yeah, Bernard.
He says he had said earlier in the episode that a forgiveness holiday is good for judicial. And I guess maybe he's just saying that it's like maybe a goodwill kind of thing. Like they do that to raise their status with citizens by saying, by, being made to seem like they're like getting
Forgiving.
some kind of reprieve. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think in the books, the forgiveness holiday is Bernard's idea. But
Yeah,
yeah, in this one it's judicial. So
it's sort of he sort of plays it as a sort of way of getting rid of a lot of the case files that Juliet has at the time when she takes over. Um, just to get rid of all the petty stuff. I think he tries to he kind of uses it to his advantage there. I think.
that's true. So we meet Lucas again, and he reveals to people who watch the show that citizens don't know what stars are. But I mean, when they showed the screen, I was like, that's kind of a lot of stars.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to
It's
mind.
very clear for a
I know,
pollution-filled
I
planet.
know. I was like, "Well, if you've never noticed them before, why are they so clearly visible?"
I know.
I mean, that
Although
surely
maybe
isn't the only clear
it's
night they had.
possible that like okay, so let's say the projection on the screen is manufactured, which is what a lot of people have been speculating about. Maybe they only just started to put the stars in the sky. I don't know.
Possibly.
Because I mean, Jules goes down to the down deep and she mentions it to Martha, and Martha doesn't know what they are either. So
Yeah, it's a little. I don't quite understand that. I was
Yeah,
wondering that
she
myself.
did mention the screen in the down deep isn't as good when she does go and
yeah,
see
yeah.
Walker. So they don't see anything like that apparently.
So Martha revealed two really important things that a lot of people have been asking questions about online and on Reddit. Is she reveals that the Pact forbids fast transport, like through pulleys and things like that, and magnification, right? So I thought a lot of people zeroed in on that because people have been asking why are there no elevators, and so now she's revealed that it's banned. Like they can't have that kind of thing. But she also hints at unrest. She says that when bodies start falling,
Uneasy, maybe. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
oh, people start asking questions, and we've learned from Allison that asking questions is bad. She
It's weird
says
to me
pretty.
because if they were so worried about like fast travel is one thing, but like if we're talking about unrest, it seems like fast communication would be their problem. And if they were so worried about that, I don't understand why they would allow like Martha to have like a two-way communicating radio, you know?
Yeah,
Well, I think that's
I don't think she's
why her
supposed to have it.
radio is not allowed. She's not supposed to have that, right? And like
But
like
everyone seems to know that she does, and when she like uses it, everyone's like, I don't know.
yeah, I don't
Like if
know.
that's
Like
like
I
one
feel
of the two like most important rules of the pact, it would seem. But I don't know if it's about travel or communication. So
Yeah, I feel like they tried to like smooth that over by having Jules say, "Oh, they're not going to make you clean because you live down here and you're old."
right,
But I don't know if I buy that because Martha seems pretty scared about certain things. So you would think that she would not want to speak openly on a
yeah, I
radio
don't
to
know.
Jules in the up top, because yeah, I think yeah, it seems pretty clear that radio communication is banned, and then she doesn't even get radioed about Martin. She gets that note, right, delivered by a porter.
That's right.
Which is why maybe they know the radios. I mean, so it doesn't seem like a thing with the radios. Like they don't use that for any sort of important. Like I don't think they
Mm.
radioed anyone when the mayor died. There was no like, hey, you know.
Yeah, now that you mention that, I kind of feel like they cut stuff out for that. They seem to be hinting at. I just got the sense that there was something missing from the show that was actually like made or written in and filmed, because it seemed like the like Bernard and Sims and Marnes, when they were meeting over John's body, that they had probably discussed that they were gonna not reveal how John's died. Like they were gonna just hide, because they talk about that at the beginning of this episode, right? They're gonna put out the story that they were in
Yeah, it
love,
was some Romeo
and
and Juliet thing,
yeah, but he didn't want people to start talking about murder specifically.
right?
So I feel like that probably got cut somehow from last week's episode, but they do hint at it in this week's episode that they're, because like they've been talking about unrest and how concerned everybody is about unrest, and yet Bernard says that if they can't sell the story that Marnes died, like not through murder, that they're fucked. But yeah, it's all these small little details though, and so I don't know if people just watching the show once through would catch all of these little things.
That's the thing. I'm sitting
um
here like I don't even know. I don't know what you're talking about. So probably not.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
like
had to
all
watch this
these little
episode again.
lines. Yeah, so I have added to my two viewings a reading of the transcript, and that
Oh
reveals more too.
Christ.
And I'm just like I don't remember this while watching the show two times. So it's very densely packed with details. Something that we've been doing in Discord is one of the other Reddit mods, Mega Dude. He has really high res screenshots. I guess he has an Apple TV, and I just watch it on Chrome, so mine is like crap. But he has really good screenshots, and so last night we were trying to decipher. Okay, so when Jules is reading the pact, she has it open to something that she's reading, and so he was able to get a screenshot,
Oh
and
really?
we were able to decipher a lot of articles. Like articles 3 to 13 talks about the good of the silo and like jobs and things like that, and there's a few interesting ones, like article 5 It says, no person afflicted with the syndrome may hold a public office of any kind or undertake any responsible work within the silo that may jeopardize the citizens of the silo. Those so affected must report their status promptly upon discovery and immediately resign from any aforementioned office.
See, that makes me think it's some sort of mental thing. It's obviously not like a contagious disease,
Yeah.
and they're not like physically unable. They are asked to step down. So I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe you're
Yeah,
like
so
maybe
I,
all
I
the
think
people who are like fuck this place, but I don't want out. That's the syndrome. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and
Like
like the guy, how
like
the guy Charles was,
nervousness.
he was twitching, and that was one of the listed symptoms. And I think I can't remember where I put the text, but like we had like he had read what the poster in mechanical was, and I think there was like a mention of like a complete breakdown of the central nervous system and stuff like that. So I
Oh
don't
my
know.
god,
I
these
guess it.
people have like anxiety. I would be like thrown out to clean immediately. Like, look at this twitchy weirdo. Like, toss her out. But I mean,
But
imagine what do they do with like mental health care in that place? There's probably
yeah.
none.
Yeah, but I think that probably because last week I had speculated that maybe Jacob had died of the syndrome, but it doesn't
Hmm.
sound like that's what it was. It sounds like he probably had something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, he was really young. He was like what, 11? Yeah, I don't think.
Are we ever going to hear about him and his mom again?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Oh, you both think
There
so,
there
as book
there's a
readers.
there's
Okay.
no there there's an episode titled Hannah, and that was the name of
Oh,
Jules' mom. So yeah, that's coming in a couple episodes, I think.
how many episodes are left?
5.
5. Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah, so we're
I
halfway
thought
through.
I thought I was thinking like there were like 8 episodes. I haven't looked up anything. You guys have to understand, like, been completely stepped out of it. I turn on my TV on Friday every day or every week and watch it. I don't look up anything. I don't go to Reddit.
Yeah, so Article 6 is what Walker was talking about. She mentioned that okay, so this one says mechanization of the stair is strictly forbidden to protect the imperative safety and security of all citizens. But that's all it says. It doesn't say
What?
why or anything. Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Um,
Read it. Can you read that again?
mechanization of the stair is strictly forbidden to
Of
protect the
this
imperative
stair.
safety and security of all citizens. So it kind of sounds like like escalators are banned too.
No, that's. I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to say like the stability of the silo, like the actual like physical structural stability. But I
Yeah, it
think they
doesn't
just
just
don't want like any sort of like fast movement or fast
yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've talked about rebellions already.
Hmm.
So I
Mhm.
think it's something that would slow down a rebellion because it takes people so
Hmm.
long to get up to the area they need to get to. So I think it's partially that. I think it's
Yeah.
just to slow people down.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rappelling would be really easy in the silo. Do you think that's forbidden?
I don't know.
I would do that. Juliette would be really good at that, considering how long she was hung on a rope at the end of that episode.
She's really good at
And
it,
then she
right?
like pulled herself all the way back up with her upper body strength.
There's like a whole unit for that in Silo PE.
I guess so.
Okay, so Article 9 deals with power. Where's the one I was talking about? Oh, okay, so here, Article 11 says all parents, this one is a little obscured because this is where Jules's fingers were. So, but it says all parents of female children must blank strict attendance at the ritual of intactica upon
Oh my god,
achievement
this is probably about when they get their
the
period,
birth
they stick the
control.
birth
Yes.
control shit in. What kind of
Yeah.
trash is this? Hugh
So
Howie.
it so it says in their 11th year to maintain the vital sufficiency
Ew.
balance within the silo.
Ew.
Yeah. So that sounds like, yeah, we don't want a population boom. So all the girls when they
Even in
turn
the
11
future,
have
we
to.
can't figure out how to like put something. Well, sorry, that was going to go non PG really quickly. Sorry. But Christ, there are better ways to do this.
And then Article 12 says the generator level is absolutely forbidden to something something citizens other than those directly responsible for maintaining sufficiency for the good of all. So I guess
They don't want
only,
them at that door.
yeah, so I guess only mechanic people are allowed down there. So
Isn't the door that accesses that machine that dug the silo only accessible from a mechanic?
I think so.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
digger thing. It was like a tunnel that, but the security on that thing is horrible.
It's really
just a
bad.
sign. Don't go in
Maybe
here.
they just think that like everyone in mechanic, I don't know, it's like the Hufflepuff floor or something.
Yeah, like nobody ever found that loose sign.
They don't care.
You know?
It's fine. They're just concerned with crap.
It's funny though, because I think we had talked about this before. Like, why would they just put a sign where you're not allowed to go past this
Do
point?
not enter.
Why don't they just board it up?
They thought they were all Hufflepuffs, I'm telling you. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, and then Article 13 is about going outside, requesting to go outside. If you request to go outside, your request will be granted, but it's irrevocable. I think John's reads that part when Holstein goes out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure though. Okay, so then I wanted to move to the timeline. I had mentioned this earlier. So when we're so in Discord, we've been talking about what year it is because it's been really confusing. We're trying to figure out how they go by their years, because people were saying that Freedom Day was 140 years ago, and that so there's like years like 97 was silo year 97 was when that cleaning video that Allison and George saw is from. And so people were wondering, oh, is it year 197, 297, what is it? And so I was saying, like, we don't count the years in the United States based on like 1776, so that didn't really make sense to me. But then when I was calculating things out with people based on that sheet from Judicial, it does seem like the current year is 143, and Freedom Day, like when the rebellion ended, was 143 years ago. So it does sound like Freedom Day is considered silo year 0.
I just don't think it's possible. I mean, how are they even like calculating years or anything if they are completely ignorant of like stars and the sun and rotation or like
Well,
I don't.
I think they have manufactured daytime, right? Because they control the silo sun at the top of the silo, like when the lights come on, right? So I think they can just determine what their days are, and then on that sheet
But
from
that means
Judicial,
they can determine how long their days are, or
yeah. So I mean, yeah, they might be operating on a 20-hour day for all we know. We don't know,
yeah.
right? So. Or maybe they
But
were operating on like a 40. I don't know. I mean,
Get those
everybody's always
workers
joking
working.
about.
everyone's always awake. So, like everyone's always out doing shit. So
So yeah, so on that Judicial sheet, they had like months and dates and years listed. So they do keep time, I guess, or they do keep a calendar similarly to how we do. But the thing that tipped me off was on that sheet, it lists Charles Martin. That was the guy that was twitching when they went to go talk to him. It listed his crime as charged with a series of apartment robberies, and that was in year 28. And
he's
then
not that old.
when Jules and Paul go to talk to him, she says, "Hey, you did a string of apartment robberies 15 years ago." Yeah, so going by the 28 that's listed on the sheet, I added 15, and that came out to 43. And so 43 is the current year because Freedom Day, when Allison went out to clean, was 140 years after the rebellion. And then Holston cleans 3 years later, so that makes it 43. And so going by that, like people in Discord say, oh, like since Jane Carmody is year 97, it's reasonable to say that after that it's like 100, Like I initially hadn't put the 100 in front of the 43, but it does seem reasonable. And then the Beckers get married in 26, and we weren't sure what century that was. But yeah, it seems weird to me, and that's why I made the assumption that they're counting Freedom Day as year 0. It's just, it sounded like it was too coincidental that it happens to be possibly 143 years in the current year, and also Freedom Day was 143 years ago. So it just, to me, it seemed logical to just make the assumption that Freedom Day is counted as year 0. So
I have no idea what you're talking. I mean, like I know what you're talking about, but that is so far beyond. But I just watched it once, Crystal. I'm sorry. I got nothing.
no, yeah,
That sounds right.
I clearly have a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from that, something else that that Martha says that's another like really easy to miss comment is Jules is trying to look at the camera and she says, "Do you have anything stronger?" And she says, "Oh, like the thing your mother made, lining up two lenses." And that's when
Yeah.
she talks
What?
about how they had made one for something called the rabbit, which I just assume is some kind of device down in mechanical that they use. And she says that Judicial destroyed it. But the thing about, like, she says her mother made something. So I want to know, like, we've been talking about how it's hinted at that Hannah Nichols committed suicide because Holston says that maybe she doesn't want to say that George committed suicide because of her past, and so
Yeah.
that's the assumption we've been making. But did she, or was she a rebel? Because if she made a outlawed magnification, maybe she just got George Wilkins.
I mean, I
Yeah.
remember we talked about Crystal that we didn't quite understand, like, there's so much that we didn't see from her mother. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, yeah, I assumed that we thought she like drowned her baby in the bathtub. Like, that's where we were. Like, I don't know what you know, but I don't know. I have no idea. And I've just been trying to figure out like what they would be trying to keep secret by keeping people from being able to like achieve like high levels of magnification. Like even that high,
Yeah.
like we're not looking at atoms here, we're just like zooming in on something, and
I think,
it's
okay, wait, let me
perplexing
let
to
me look
me.
back at what Martha says. She says a relic like this is going to get you more than a slap on the wrist. Something with wiring this small, the effect is going to be a lot more dramatic. So I don't know what she's really saying there. Do you have any idea, Eamon?
Yeah, I was it's hard to know what to think about that because it looks like a sort of a DV camcorder sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I kind I don't really know why the whole magnification thing is an issue. I know she's using it to try and look at the chips inside it. Maybe it's something to do with that because we don't know exactly why the chips are a thing or an issue for her because that's the first thing she looks at. She wants to know what it is. So I think, yeah, I think we're once there is more to be sort of revealed about that camera and what it's about, but it's a tough one to sort of to predict. I'm not. It was never a sort of a big thing in the books either. So you've only read up as far as the well one. So basically up to
Yeah,
one. I
that's all
think
I've read.
it must be fun then because I know we are coming having come from the books. We can see kind of we have some idea what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
it could all change. We don't know. It could all change, and it has changed already a
Yeah,
little bit.
sure.
So it's good.
I'm having a good time. I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV, and I haven't been podcasting. And Crystal and I did a podcast like 10 years ago for an Ender's Game website that two different ones that we were both doing, and it was fun. And so when Crystal asked me to do this, I just did it for Crystal, and because of the fun that we had together last time. So and I really enjoyed the short story. I don't know what kept me from reading the book, and I think it was because I don't like when books like hop around so much, or when it's like a bunch of different characters bouncing around chapters. And I think I just put it off for that reason.
Actually, you
Yeah.
know what it probably was? It was
What
probably Ender's Game.
was it? Yeah,
I
it
mean,
might have been like, yeah, it might have just been
yeah,
like all
no,
that.
but
So
because like right after we interviewed him, like it got really big with like the promotions and stuff when we
yeah,
went to the
I
premiere
don't
and
know.
everything like that. So
But I mean, I
I don't
had
know.
every other opportunity. Just wasn't my thing naturally. I don't know. I promised him that I would read it. I went back and like listened to our last episode. I'm a little embarrassed. Sorry, Hugh.
So for an episode titled "The Janitor's Boy," they didn't really get into it too much. I mean, they had that scene with Sims telling the story about his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and they revealed this new mystery of the janitor's closet. And as we alluded to a little bit, book readers probably have a good idea of what's in the closet. But question for our listeners who haven't read the books: what do you think is in Sims's janitor's closet? What do you think, Kelly? Since you're one of those people.
I have no idea. I really have no idea. I can't even begin to guess at this point.
And that's fine. That's probably intentional. I think that's what they want. They
I
want people to be like, I
I
have
haven't
no
even thought
idea.
about it. I just want to keep watching, and it's part of what makes it really fun for me. But just I don't know, like you can, I love reading books and I love seeing adaptations, and that doesn't ruin anything for me. But doing it backwards sometimes is really fun too.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I often do it backwards too. So I did that, say, with The Expanse, because I hadn't read the books beforehand. So, and I had, it's sometimes it's nice just to, to blow through a show in a couple of seasons and binge it, and then go back to the books later and see what the comparisons are.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I only watched the first 2 seasons of The Expanse, but I keep hearing about how good the later seasons are, so I'm gonna have to
They
get
were
to
really
that.
good.
Yeah, and I haven't read the books, so. All right, that about wraps it up for our breakdown. This is going to be a longer episode than usual, but that's good because I like having meaty discussions. Eamon has generously offered to give one of our lucky listeners a signed paperback of his book 0 Hour. We're also going to have ebook prizes from cyberpunk fantasy author Beth Hodgson. So you can enter the giveaway a couple of ways, such as sharing our podcast episode on social media or leaving us a podcast review. You can head on over to thedowndeed.net for entry details. And in closing, Eamon, one last question for you. Where do you see yourself working in the silo?
Chicken farmer, chicken farmer.
Cat herder.
The gardener in me would like to be in the farms, but I'd probably end up in IT at some stage.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was great having you.
Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Wires from the Deep. Be sure to follow or subscribe to us and tell other Silo fans that they can find us at wiresfromthedeep.com. You can join the Down Deep Discord by going to thedowndeep.net and following the invite link to join discussions with other fans or join our Friday night watch party. If you want to contact me or Kelly, you can leave a comment on Podbean or on one of our YouTube videos, or you can email us at crystal@thedowndeep.net. Tune in next week as we break down episode 6, The Relic. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.